over here. So I wanted to cover two core topics with you that I feel we need to adopt as an industry, that we need to adopt as cyber defenders. When I think about the future of what we require, I often look to various analogies to help me understand it better, to game it out a little bit. One of the items that I think about is the parallels between conventional warfare and cyber warfare. Now, there are many things similar and there are many things dissimilar. But focus on the similarities. The concept of parity is something that the common battlefield has always had. One side gets a shield, another side gets a better shield, a sword, a better sword, a horse, a tank, a plane, so on and so forth. Parity was always moments away. And I believe, try as we might, the individual cyber controls we put in place will only keep the barbarians at the gate for a moment of time. These are not sustainable advantages. These are not the roads of Rome or the injection of GPS into the battlefield that gave 5, 10 years of sustainable advantage. It's architectures that give sustainable advantage. Why? Because they make all of the defensive posture better in one step. So I agree with the 5 points discussed earlier. And when you think about collaboration, you think about, on-demand definition, you need an architecture to support that. And the architecture's got to be open. So I believe what's out there today is not enough. We need next generation architectures across the board in subscription to those architectures if we truly want to change the outcome. So when we think about that architecture, what's missing today is a fundamental messaging layer. The ability to publish and subscribe rather than direct code the relationships. I'll give you an example. We set up a fake system integrator for the military, for the U.S. military. And we proceeded to be attacked by various entities. Those attacks, even the most sophisticated, they actually were bold enough to generate the attack from the same location they generated the first vulnerability scan, despite using 0 days in the attack. Smart enough to write a 0 day. They certainly were smart enough to move the IPs around. But the reality is, they were brazen enough to know that all we would do is block that scan and not share that information in real time with the rest of the infrastructure. That information might show up in a report someday. It might be used to show we were silly for not seeing the attack. But it really wasn't going to be used against them. Each of our defensive measures do this over and over and over again. They throw away the very information that we could be leveraging to defend ourselves better across all the different asynchronous warfare points. So we need that open architecture, that open message layer that we can all count on. Then we need to break the current tie. The current definition and design of cyber defensive products is built from a fundamentally awkward place. For those of you that are vendors, you know that if your customer gets breached, you have to respond. You have to respond as a good partner, you have to help them solve the problem, and you have to help them fix it for the future. And if you do it well, you can actually come out of it stronger than you went into it. If you false positive, you very well might just lose your customer, period. The industry is built with more concern over false positive than it is over detection. Think about it. Company gets breached, you get a call from their CISO. A false positive goes off, you meet their lawyers. Big difference. So we need the ability, and that's okay. The fact of shutting down a business as a cyber protector is a horrible thing. So that's fine. It's okay, it's built that way. It's just awkward. So we need to inject into our systems the ability to say, I'm concerned, let business carry on, stop lateral movement, let this user continue, but do a real deep inspection of what's going on at this moment. We need to give ourselves the ability to think about it. Very powerful when we have that. And finally, we desperately need end-to-end intelligence. We have to stop acquiring solutions simply for how they detect or how they manage or report. We have to ask a third question: do they inform? Think about an endpoint, blocks a piece of malware, virtually pats itself on the back, publishes up a little bit of information, stopped it, increment counter by 1, here's the information. What could have happened is it could have ripped from that. What link was it going to talk back to? What registry key was it going to change? What file was it going to call? What was going to happen? Give that back to the system so every defensive measure could have used that information to become yet stronger. Now the fact there are millions of pieces of malware a day is a problem for the hacking community, not a shield to hide under. Very powerful when we do this. We have to stop being negligent with the information we have at our disposal at time of block. Now, if you're going to set all this up and you're going to share information, you're going to use context. Wonderful word. Why? I'll ask you a question. Up here I have a Chinese browser. Is that malware for your organization or not? Is that bad or good? Yesterday I was with a company that has a large development facility in China. You can't tell them that's malware. That's part of their business. If you're a US-based defense contractor, that's probably an issue if you see that in your environment. That one's easy. What about these? Phenomenal companies. Is that a sign of an exfiltration path or just shadow IT? Context matters. And when you get deeper, is it really users, ports, registries? All of these things can provide context. I'll give you an analogy and wrap with it. I've lived in the same neighborhood now for 7 years. There's 13 houses on my block. If somebody walks down that street and they match the FBI's most wanted list, I can call the authorities, they'll come get them. Think of that like a hash file. Signature. If they break a window, I've got an IOC, an indicator of compromise. I can call somebody about that. But what do I have when I know my neighbor's out of town and they're standing in their driveway looking all around the house? In contextual terms, it's a problem. And that is the ultimate power we have if we understand our environments. You can know what's installed in your environment. You can know what's abnormal, and you can add context into it. I believe we need to elevate well above hash files in this year's version of hash files of indicators of compromise and move to indicators of attack, which are contextual-based understandings of our environment. That's the information we can pass along that next generation architecture. So those are the 2 core points that I think we need to adjust if we want to dramatically change and develop a sustainable advantage in this effort. Thank you. We're just going to wear you out running back and forth.